Hey guys, it's Mel. Today I want to talk some more about religion and specifically about the church. So when I was a kid, I didn't really grow up in church. My family wasn't super religious or anything, but I was kind of fascinated with religion from more of a cultural standpoint. I had three of my closest friends. One was Jewish, one was Catholic, and one was kind of evangelical Protestant Christian. All of them were pretty orthodox. And the evangelical family I thought was by far the most interesting because they didn't go to a fancy church. They usually like met at people's houses and had potlucks and stuff. And I was like, well, you guys are kind of interesting. But I have enjoyed that in my life of kind of like standing back and kind of observing everyone and what they do. And my grandparents took me sometimes to a Catholic church as a kid, and mostly it just annoyed me. It was really long and really boring, and it was very systematic and kind of cult-like. And I also got really aggravated at the fact that they handed out what looked like really tasty cookies, and I couldn't have one because I wasn't Catholic, which I've come to learn are actually really nasty communion wafers, so it's okay. But as a kid, I kind of I really wanted one of those. And I did see my friend go through the Catholic confirmation ceremony, and I've been to a lot of different Catholic things as well as Jewish ceremonies. And a lot of it's very beautiful and culturally fascinating to watch. But for me personally, I don't really like the tradition, the repetition that's involved in that type of religious like ceremony and stuff, like all that pomp and circumstance, and just kind of it's fluff and it's unnecessary and it's annoying and it seems really cultish. The worst, oh my gosh, the worst is when people recite stuff together and it sounds like some kind of like chant incantation type of situation. I hate that, absolutely. So yeah, if you see me at a funeral or some kind of church event and everybody's reciting scripture and I'm not, that's why. It makes it, I think it's creepy. Anyway, when I was about 8, my mom took me to a Methodist church, which I'm very kind of standoffish and buck authority and don't believe experts at all and have to evaluate everything on my own. And I did the same thing going into that church, but I was, I don't know, in 4th grade or something, and did like a confirmation class. And I studied John Wesley and the foundation of the Methodist Church. And so I really was fascinated by John Wesley's work, and the Methodist Church has really gone off route from what he founded in the first place. But I appreciated that, and then also the tie of the fact that C.S. Lewis at that point had kind of become one of my favorite authors. So I was always a bookworm as a child, and I was fascinated with the Chronicles of Narnia. And it was funny because my mom became super religious at one point, and then she was trying to take the Chronicles of Narnia series away from me because it had magic in it, and she was like, this is satanic. And I was like, I'm over there arguing about how C.S. Lewis is a Christian and that these are metaphors for this and that and that. And you can only imagine me, I'm like 10 years old and I'm arguing with my mom with logic. But anyway, I evolved from reading Chronicles of Narnia to reading other works of C.S. Lewis and putting a lot of kind of belief in him and his viewpoint of the Christian faith. And conveniently enough, now when I start studying the personality types and the INTJ, a lot of typologist type C.S. Lewis as an INTJ, which makes a lot more sense than how I would relate to that specifically, because kind of looking at a lot of people that I met who were into Christianity and stuff just seemed like really weird and kooky people. And C.S. Lewis brought a lot more level-headedness to that. So I was involved in the Methodist Church for a while, and it did, I did some of the traditional stuff and wore a robe and sang in the choir and stuff, but it went through this evolution of bringing in the praise band and building a different kind of service, and then it got into more of that marketing element. And when I was in the youth group in high school, the new youth minister started, doing all this crazy stuff to get more people to come. And that's one of the things that I have a hard time with. So I ended up leaving that church, and I've been to several other churches since then. And I kind of left there with like, yeah, this is so hypocritical, and I want somebody who's like really focused on theology and that everybody needs to do things the right way. And then I went to this fire and brimstone kind of cult-like church, and then I left that place. And so like I've kind of like dabbled in a lot of it, like trying to find the right place. And for me, I've used an analogy before of like, if every person is kind of like a plant, and we're constantly growing and we need certain nutrients. Now, I don't want to be the houseplant that lives in the same pot for my entire life. And some people are okay with that. They're content with that. I am not. I am constantly seeking growth and validation and new nutrients. And so that water and sunlight and, repotting is something that I desire. And I view churches as kind of like being the pot for people's plants. And you can't, like, people can be content with that and be in this pot and survive that. Lots of houseplants can do that. Some of them might need to, eventually move into a bigger pot, but they can stay there. And for me, I think that the church is more of like it's an assistance, right? But the ideal situation would be to be planted outside in nature and not live in a pot, because I don't think plants really belong in pots at all. They belong in the ground. And if you look holistically at, Christianity and spirituality, and the church as being something holistically that operates in the world, that people should learn how to operate that way outside of like this religious, traditional, like, systematic process of religion and denominations. So that would be the goal. But you want to be surrounded by people and have relationships. And that's what you get from going to a physical church. So most recently I went to an evangelical kind of like non-denominational megachurch is what we're calling it these days, right? And it was cool at first. I like the open-mindedness kind of like entry to that environment where you feel very safe. And you don't feel like if you don't show up in like the right suit and a big enough hat and high heels, that everybody's staring at you and you don't belong there. Because I have been to a lot of different churches and I've seen a lot of weird stuff. And while I've never like been to a church where I held a snake, I've seen, there's a lot of stuff that people do. And there's a lot of ways to feel unaccepted and rejected inside of church settings, which is the complete opposite of what it's created for. So that's one of the things that I liked about it, going into that like mega church type environment initially, because I tried to avoid it because I was like, there's too many people there. I don't want to be there. But I like that aspect of it, but it just that environment just continues to grow, and it's very corporate feeling to me. So there's no way in my mind that a pastor, quote unquote pastor, can actually pastor 100,000 people in the congregation. Like, that's completely irresponsible and irrational. Like, that's not going to happen. They can barely manage to pastor the other pastors and leaders and lay people in the church. There's just too many people. And I don't think that's like it's not beneficial to everybody. It's mostly beneficial to people who are new to experiencing that kind of relationship with God. So it has its place. But again, you have to choose. I think that a lot of people who run these churches, you have to think in terms of a business. Even though a church isn't a business, they operate like a business. And when you have a product to sell, you market it to a targeted audience, and churches target audiences. So you have to fit in that audience or you're not going to feel like you belong there. And it's a double-edged sword, and it's something that's something that the people who are at the church have to make a decision about. If they want to market to an audience of new believers because they're trying to get more people in all the time, they're going to discount people who've been there for a long time and need something else. Every plant needs a different amount of water and sunlight and nutrients. And so that's something that is kind of lost in the way. Nobody's going to be able to build this church and be able to take care of everybody from everywhere all the time. Like, that is not feasible. Just like no company is going to design a product that they can sell and market to every human being on the planet. It's just not possible. And so I think it is very ideal to go to different churches based on your different beliefs and your level of maturity and what you're looking for as far as the people that you're surrounding yourself with. I think it's possible for somebody to start a church and instead of continuing to fixate on bringing in new people, to grow with the audience, which is actually what you've seen in a lot of the older churches that, people talk about, and they're like, oh, there aren't any new people, there are old people there. But that pastor probably chose that route. What they were doing was adjusting their product to maintain the audience they already had, knowing that it wasn't possible to do both at the same time. People who have been in church for 40 years need something different than somebody who's never graced have never walked through the doors of a church before. And that has to be kept in mind. It's very hard to create something that would then be marketable to everybody, everywhere, at any point in time. And that's one of the things that I think that, mega churches are trying to do, like a lot of corporations try to do, right? Places like BlackBerry shot themselves in the foot when they could have catered to their own audience instead of trying to be the next iPhone, right? It's not, ideal to be in that kind of predicament. So, yeah, I think that, I don't know, just honestly now, I left the church that I had been going to and I hadn't found a new one yet, so I don't know. I like to think that, that there's somewhere that I fit in, but at this point, where I've been is no longer where I feel like I belong. So, it's an ongoing process. And yeah, lots of pastors make jokes about people church hopping, but that's again the decision that you would have to make if you were leading a church, right? Are you going to cater to the audience you already have and grow the material with them, even if it excludes new people from being there? Or are you going to focus on new people and push out the people who've been there a long time that feel like they need something more than what they have there? So I think ideally the best way to surround yourself with people is not about a physical church and tradition or anything like in religious, context, but in finding those people to have your own system of friendships and relationships. Again, focusing on a relationship more than the tradition or other aspects of religion, that you have people that no matter where you go, that those people grow with you and continue to inspire you and pour into you, regardless of what building you go to, or what traditions or music you listen to or whatever. But yeah, I'm still trying to work that out. I don't know. I'm in my 30s. I've been going to church for like over 25 years now. Like I said, in a lot of different places. So I don't know. And maybe I just will not ever go to church again. I don't know yet. I'm still I'm still thinking about that and trying to figure that out. So anyway, this is some of my thoughts on the church. And thanks for watching. And I'll see you next time.